Welcome to the live podcast, Win More on Purpose. Today we have David Hochberg with us on the power of intuition. Make decisions confidently and never second guess them again. For those that are not familiar, the agenda for today, it's going to be a conversation between me and David. We're going to be learning together, so write down those questions. There will be a Q&A at the end. And to start off, everyone can put into the chat where it is that they're coming in from, what is that you're focusing on today, or what is it that you do. Just as a little introduction on myself, for those who don't know me, my name is Yaakov Steinberg. When I first went into sales coaching, what I do today, I am a sales coach. When I first went into it about 4.5+ years ago now, I noticed that people were able to really get to a nice place, 6-7 figures on their own, because they're good at what they do, they're passionate, but at some point along the way, they would get stuck. They'd hit this glass ceiling, whether it's because they didn't want to be that quintessential used car salesperson, sleazy, stuck, just pushing people into, transactional, things that they didn't even necessarily need, or just they were making up as they went along and it wasn't working anymore. And ultimately, that's where I came into the picture. Mindset, technique, skills, really helping people to get that confidence and clarity to take their business to the next level. I've had the pleasure of working with people like Chaya Fishman, Hoodie Bluch, Hoodie Greenberger, as people might know from LinkedIn. And thank God the people that I've been able to work with have been able to grow their business at the 6-7 figure level, even by 50% in the first 60 days with working with me. Those at the 100K realm, give or take, even by 150% in the first 60 to 90 days. And solopreneurs just starting out, even 240% in the first 45 days. With that, David, so great to have you on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself and let's get the show on the road.
Hey, great. First of all, Yaakov, sounds like you're doing amazing work. So
Thank you, my
keep
friend.
it going. Keep it going. So my background is in the world of psychology and therapy, and I did that for many, many years. And I learned a thing or two about people. And about 5 years ago, I switched into business coaching. And what I find is, people say, do you have an expertise in a particular industry? And I always tell them my expertise is people. And you're a person in your business, and you're the strongest link in your business, and you're the weakest link in your business. And I help people who, are able to, have, if you're looking for strategy, I'm not your guy. If you just want a strategy, lots of books out there, Google, lots of, professionals that deal with specific strategy. However, if you have a strategy and you're stuck in that gap between the information and the execution, that's when you give me a call. And then we fly right through that.
Absolutely amazing. So just to jump right into it, what exactly is intuition, right? We're talking about intuition and the power of it, but what is intuition?
That is a great question. And like all great questions, you can have, if you ask 10 people, you'll have 10 different answers of what exactly it means. But I'm going to give you the definition that we're going to use for the purpose of this discussion. And you'll see how a lot of what we're going to talk about is going to relate to this definition. I define intuition as your brain applying all the information you have learned, heard, read, experienced, witnessed, dealt with in your life, applying it in one moment to the particular dilemma and challenge that's in front of you. And therefore, what you're really tapping into when we talk about intuition is you are tapping to the absolute best decision you can make in the moment, based on everything that your mind knows. The mind is an unbelievable thing. It's incredible what the information it can channel and use. And that's the definition that we're going to use for intuition. Some people say it's that gut feeling, it's something spiritual, and all those may be true. But for the purpose of our discussion, that's how we're going to define it. It is your brain applying everything that it knows in the moment.
Wow. And I think that it's quite powerful, like when we think about it, how much this can change our lives, not just on a business level, but just in general, right? The idea that we inherently know what it is that we need to do is mind-boggling.
It's incredible, because this is not just we make decisions all day long, right? Whether we're going to eat chocolate or vanilla ice cream, or should we buy a house, who we should marry, and everything in between. We make decisions all the time, and your intuition gives you, and I say this firmly because I believe it's correct. It gives you the best decision you could possibly make 100% of the time, not 99% of the time, 100% of the time when you apply it correctly. And hopefully after our conversation, people understand a little bit more about what it is. But it gives you, imagine if you can make the best decision 100% of the time.
Right. And the idea of being able to do that, I mean, just, business ramifications in life, you can literally be able to know what to do at any given time without having to, rationalize it or go through this whole logical process.
Or second guess it.
Which is a
big challenge that people have.
For sure. How did you become such a master when it comes to intuition? Like, how did you, what led to this fascination with intuition, and how did you master it?
So, two things actually led me on this journey. One is, a while ago I read a book by the name of Gavin de Becker called The Gift of Fear. And he talks about, the idea of trusting your intuition in a situation where you're afraid. But it got me just thinking, this idea that we all have that gut reaction. We all have that hunch. We all have that experience. And how many times have we had the experience where we say, my gut was telling me XYZ and I didn't listen. So I started questioning, why not? In other words, how many times did people say, I should have done this and I didn't? Or I did this and I knew it was the wrong decision and I did it anyway. Why? What's going on? And if you have a feeling, a gut, an intuitive voice telling you do X, Y, Z or don't do X, Y, and Z, why don't we listen to it? And I started going down that road to understanding that and exploring that. What makes people not listen to their intuition? Because I've yet to meet the person who said, I knew I shouldn't have done this and I did it anyway, and it was the wrong decision. Intuition is the right decision, the correct decision 100% of the time. Actually, let me rephrase that. It's the best decision you can make 100% of the time.
Right.
It cannot predict the future. Nobody can. But it's the best decision you can make. And I started getting interested in this question of what is this? Why does it work? And why do people have such a hard time following it and listening to it? And just spent a lot of time researching it and understanding it and talking and working with people on really honing it into a very powerful tool.
Absolutely amazing. I find it fascinating, this idea that our system knows exactly what it is that's the best thing for us. And it makes sense if we think about it. Just the same way that our body is able to heal itself, our body is able to tell us what it is that's the best decision for us to make in any given situation. And it's not even when it comes to decisions, right? It's that's a big piece of it, but it's also understanding, right? Like I gave an example on LinkedIn the other day, which was, a handyman came to my house, knocked on a couple tiles. He's like, oh yeah, you got 15 centimeters under the tiles here of cement. I was like, what? Right? And that comes with, doing the repetitions and really understanding, but that is also the intuition of knowing exactly. He's like, maybe it's 20, but it's probably about 15, right? He just knew, this is the amount. And he's like, this is what I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the experience. Again, let's go back to that definition of intuition. It's everything in your mind that you've ever learned, experienced, read, heard, watched, seen, applied in 1 second to something that you're trying to understand, that you're trying to, deal with.
Right. Absolutely amazing. So delving in a little bit more, does everybody have intuition? It kind of sounds from what you're saying that we all have it inherently, but is that correct?
So I believe every person, and I'll talk to people and they'll say, "Oh, I don't have intuition. I can't do that. I can't listen to it." And I tell them that, I'm sorry, you're incorrect. You have intuition. Every person has intuition. I said, your challenge isn't that you don't have intuition. Your challenge is that you don't know how to identify it. You have other voices competing for attention in your head. You have all kinds of fears and other things that are in the way of your listening and following and applying your intuition. But everybody's got it. Everybody's got intuition. And if we learn how to use it and we learn how to apply it, you'll make the best decision. And it sounds like a crazy claim, but I believe it to be true. You'll make the best decision 100% of the time. Right. And let me just clarify it, just real quick, because I need to clarify that. The best decision doesn't mean that ultimately it will work out best for you. Right? We can't predict the future. That's not
Okay.
what the best decision means. The best decision means it's the best decision you could possibly make in the moment with all the information you have. That's what it means.
Interesting. Being able to make a decision with all the information that you have in that current moment. So meaning that at any given time, if a person does not have some information, that'll hamper their ability to be able to make decisions. Is that correct?
That will hamper their intuition.
Their intuition, I should say.
Yes, yes. If you sat me down in the cockpit of a 747 and said fly the plane, I could not intuitively fly the plane.
Right.
Intuition cannot give you information you do not have. But I'll tell you what my intuition would be screaming at me. It would say, you should not be sitting here because you do not know how to fly this plane. You need more information to fly the plane. So when you tap into your intuition, if there's information that you don't have, intuition will not give it to you. But intuition will say to you, I need more information. I cannot make a decision.
Got it. Okay, yeah, and that's a big difference because it's kind of like your intuition is talking to you through that process where even if I don't have all the information necessary, my system might even say to me, hey, you don't have all the information that you need, so let's try to get that information first before we make a decision. Is that right?
That's 100% correct. Your intuition might say, we don't have enough information and we should make the decision anyway. Your intuition can tell you all kinds of things, but intuition cannot give you information you do not have.
Got it. Why is it that it's so hard for us to listen to that gut reaction, to that intuition? Why is it that we have such a hard time, understanding what's really going on?
I love that question. Imagine a large conference table, giant conference table, like one of those conference tables that's 20 feet long, 30 feet long. And you're sitting at the head of that table. And the first seat to your right is your intuition. The rest of the table is occupied by all the different emotional experiences you've had in your life, right? Let's say, for example, you decided to take a business risk and you failed miserably and you wound up owing people, $100,000. And then you did that again and you wound up owing people $100,000. Mm-hmm. And then an opportunity presents itself to you and your intuition says, yeah, that's a great opportunity. You need to jump on it. The voice sitting next to your intuition might be the voice of failure, that you owe people now a lot of money and you really messed up the last 2 times. And it is going to be screaming at you, do not do this. So here we have this giant conference table. Intuition is right next to you. And the rest of the table, you have another, 40, 50 people sitting around that table, all screaming at you very, very loudly. What about this time? Remember when you did this? What about this guy? What about that? And all kinds of loud emotional voices are all speaking at the same time. The reason people don't listen to their intuition is not because they don't have it. It's because the intuition says its piece and every other voice around that table is yelling. And the intuition gets drowned out very, very quickly.
It sounds almost like it's a conditioning factor.
Correct. There is a conditioning. We make decisions. I mean, if you think about life, right? We go through life. We learn how the world works, right? If when you walk down the street and you smile at somebody, what do they typically do? What happens?
They smile back.
They smile back. If every
Depends
time
on where you
down,
are, but usually.
Right. Usually, they'll smile back. And if every time you walk down the street, you smiled at someone, they turn around and hit you, you wouldn't smile at anybody. So we learn as we go through life what works and what doesn't. So what winds up happening is those experiences get, created in our heads. And those experiences are often very loud and very emotional. There's a lot of emotion with those experiences. There's fear, there's stress, there's anxiety, there's anger, there's trauma, there's worry, there's all kinds of stuff. Intuition has none of that. Intuition is none of that. And one of the key components of knowing that you're listening to your intuitive voice and not to any other voices sitting around the table is your intuition is completely calm. If you are making a decision and you are very stressed, the voice in your head that's telling you to do it or not do it is stressful, worried, angry, afraid, excited. It's not your intuition speaking.
So a lot of times the fact that we struggle with, listening to our intuition is because of all that noise that's going on in our head. So the more that someone conditions themselves to not listen to that gut reaction, to not listen to the intuition, all those other all those other people sitting around the table, whether it's the logic, whether it's your feelings, whatever it is, and that a lot of times can have to do with, the way that someone grew up, or, the way that, they've been conditioned, life, that'll affect their ability to be able to make decisions through intuition more and more, especially the longer that they don't understand, that they don't learn, I should say, how to go through that process of actually listening to their intuition. Is that right?
That's 100% correct. The more you find, because so you're sitting at that conference table. Imagine you had to make a decision and you present it to your board of all these people around the conference table, and everyone starts yelling at you. You're not walking away with any good decision.
Right.
You're not walking away with anything. You're confused. You're stressed. Should I? Shouldn't I? How many times have we done a pros and cons list? Everyone says, "Oh, this is a great tool to make a decision, make a pros and cons list." Well, when you make the pros and cons list, most people that I've spoken to, the pros and cons list is another way for them to be worried and stressed about the decision. It does not bring them any closer to making the decision. It now gives them detailed reasons why they are stressed about the decision. So all it does is it feeds into it, just allows these other voices to just talk louder and louder and louder, and they get you no closer to a good decision.
Interesting. So this idea of these, like you said, pros and cons, like so many people, even myself, I've worked with these pros and cons list. That's literally ignoring the intuition, because like we said earlier, your intuition is that gut response right away, you know what to do. And as soon as you don't do that, now you're having a logical conversation, which has nothing to do with intuition.
Nothing to, and you can have a logical conversation, but this is the key. It's a logical conversation that is coupled with a lot of emotion. That is your key. That is one, if you're going to get one guideline about how to use your intuition, that's the guideline. Your intuitive voice is always calm. You might have emotion about what it says, but the voice itself, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? It is calm.
Wow. I'm writing notes as we speak. That's very powerful. The idea that, and again, we're born within this calm state of stability, and life itself jars us around to where we're not calm anymore. We allow ourselves to get stressed through the different, things that go on around us. I guess that would lead me to ask, are there times when we shouldn't be listening to the intuition, or is it always correct?
Well, are there times that you should walk across the street with your eyes closed? Maybe. We could probably come up with one, but I think most of us would answer no. I can't think of an example when you should not listen to your intuition. Well, let me rephrase that. I can think of a time a person would not listen to their intuition when they say, the correct decision that my intuition is telling me is causing me to such pain that I don't want to do the correct decision. I'd rather go in a different direction. Yeah, that would be an example when someone won't listen to their intuition. Does that mean they're making the right decision? No, it means they're making the wrong decision. But it means they're making the wrong decision because they think it's too difficult to make the correct intuitive decision. That would be an example when someone would not listen to their intuition. If someone's deciding, should I go into this partnership? I have a partnership and it's not working, and my intuition tells me I need to leave the partnership, but I feel bad for the guy. I don't want to do it to him. We've been friends for years. What's going to happen? What's he going to say about me? What about this? What about that? What about this? And therefore, I'll stay in the partnership, even though the correct decision is to leave. So, my intuition's giving me the correct decision. I may choose to ignore it.
How does the intuition, let's say, have that understanding of what is the best thing for me?
So, again, if you think of intuition as everything in your mind, everything that you know about you, about the world, about life,
Right.
applied in one moment to this question, the decision in front of you. Like I said, it cannot predict the future. That's another limitation to intuition. Cannot predict the future.
Right.
But it gives you the best decision you could possibly make in the moment. No decision can predict the future.
Right.
But it's giving you all the information in the best possible way, in a calm way, of what really is what's best in the moment.
Amazing. Let's take this a little bit of a step further. What's an example, or what types of situations does intuition work for? It sounds like it really works across the board, and it's always, going to apply. But what are some specific examples you can give us to kind of bring it home?
Okay, so yes, in my opinion, intuition works across the board. You can use it for any decision. I'll give you an example. There was someone I was working with who would keep hiring and then needing to fire. They kept hiring the wrong person for the position, and they hired them and it wouldn't work out, and they'd fire, and they'd hire, and they'd fire. And as we talked and as we used this, and they came to me and said, why do I keep doing this? Like, why can't I find the right person for the job? At one point, at some point, okay, it happens. You hired the wrong person for the job. But after this happens several times in a row, you start to question, am I missing something in hiring? Am I missing something in the way I'm doing this?
Right.
And as we talked, and as we got deeper into the, intuitive idea, what they recognized is that with every single one of I think it was like 5 people in a row, every single one of the employees that they had hired, they knew it wasn't going to work. However, intuitively they knew it. However, like you said, either they felt bad, or they were desperate for somebody, or they were hopeful and saying, "Oh, well, maybe maybe this will work out this time," or all those other things. Right? Lots of voices around that conference table. We're just speaking to them, and they were ignoring their intuition. And once they started using their intuition, they found that there were times that they were able to say, and this is also a fascinating thing you will see when you start using your intuition. You might not be able to explain why you are thinking the answer is XYZ. You might not be able to justify to yourself, I think this person is the right person for the job. Why? I can't give you all the reasons. And you might think this person's not the right person for the job. Why? I can't put my finger on it, right? How many times, right. Whenever they're dealing with intuition, that's a common phrase. I can't put my finger on it. I guarantee you, if you would sit down and you would watch a video of the interview, and you analyzed it frame by frame, every, part of their body language, the things they said, every single aspect of what was going on, you would be able to see why you decided they were a good fit for the job. Your intuition does it like that. And that's the beauty of intuition.
Wow. It's absolutely fascinating. And I keep saying that just because it's true. I mean, like the idea that, so many people, myself included, when it comes to entrepreneurship, you have to take calculated risks. But ultimately, when we enter intuition into the picture, so that's one of the biggest ways you can use intuition when it comes to business decisions, right? It no longer becomes as painful or as hard or as fearful to make those decisions because you're doing it with your intuition. Then this is the right thing for you to do. And it just takes away all that angst and all that, all those negative feelings that you go through when you're trying to go through that process.
Correct, because you stop second guessing it once you use your intuition. And again, keeping in mind the 2 major limitations of intuition. It cannot give you information you don't have, but it will usually tell you that you don't have enough information. It's not going to give you a wrong decision because you don't have the information. It's going to tell you I need more information. And it cannot predict the future. So it's the best decision you could possibly, and no decision can. but it's the best decision you can make in the moment. And then you stop second guessing.
Right. How do you know that you're really listening to your intuition and not to your fear? Right? So there's a lot of voices around this conference table. How do I know that the voice that I'm listening to is really intuition and not something else stepping in under the guise of intuition?
So there are a couple of different ways to tell, of how to do it. And again, I work with people. I can, go through all the different steps. But the biggest guideline I can give you is the voice you're listening to is calm. You can have emotion or stress about the decision, but the decision itself, should I hire this person? Should I go into this partnership? Should I take this calculated risk? The answer is going to be a calm yes or a calm no.
Right.
That's your best guideline.
Right.
If you walk out of here, that's the only guideline you use, you'll be using your intuition.
Yeah, because you can't feel two emotions at the same time. You can't be positive and anxious at the exact same time. It's impossible, right? So the fact that, just to hone in on the audience and on those listening, how powerful this piece is right here of the fact that intuition is always calm, is the fact that in general, if it was fear talking, right, which was the question, then you would feel anxious or you would feel angst or you would have a negative emotional feeling, whereby the calmness would be a positive feeling, right? And you can't feel two conflicting emotions at the same time. It's physically impossible.
Can I rework that a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
Is that okay? I'm going to rework that a little bit. I think what's also another way to tell is you separate the decision from what I'm feeling. The decision is calm. Should I do this partnership? Yes or no? Calm answer, no. And I'm feeling stressed about that. And I'm feeling nervous about that. So when you separate the two, your intuition gives you the decision. The decision comes from a very calm place. And I can have emotion about that decision, but that doesn't change what the decision is. And that's also where people get lost. My intuition tells me I should, take this risk. I should, rent an office in this particular place. That's what my intuition tells me to do.
Right.
And I am afraid that I'm going to be wasting my money, or it's not going to work, or I'm going to outgrow the place, or whatever it is. I can have all kinds of emotion, but the decision is still the best decision.
Got it. As opposed to within the decision itself, feeling an angst or a fear in the decision and in the feeling of making that decision, right? So there's two pieces there. You're saying it's like, I don't know another great example to give on this, but it's two pieces to the two levers, I guess we could say, right? There's the decision lever and there's the feeling lever, and they've both don't need to be in the same position. If they're both in a negative position, that's not you listening to intuition. But if one, as long as the decision-making one is up in positive and the feeling is down, that's still intuition. And if they're both up, then that's probably also intuition.
That's correct. Because what you feel about the intuitive decision, feel whatever you want. But the intuitive decision will be calm. You will get a calm yes, you will get a calm no.
Got it. Other than the thinking of the future, because we don't have, and I'm understanding that intuition, like you said earlier, can't tell us the future, and that's simply because it doesn't have that information, and it's all about information that we have. Are there any other limitations to intuition, or is it strictly just the future?
I think there are two limitations to intuition. One is it cannot predict the future, but no decision can. Intuition is the same as any other decision when it comes to that. And number two, it cannot give you information you don't have, which I think are one and the same. It can't predict the future because it doesn't have information. But I think those are the two major limitations to intuition.
Got it.
And it's still the best decision you can make in the moment.
Right, because it's the information that you have, and it's all decision making is based on whatever information I have in that particular moment in time.
Correct.
What advice would you have for people that are just getting started on this process of learning how to listen to their intuition? And then in general, just what advice would you have for this anything around this concept?
I think you need to practice listening to your listening to your intuition with small decisions. Don't make a giant decision with your intuition when you're just starting to listen to it.
Right.
Do something small. Small question. You have should I do task A or task B first in my morning? And you listen for the decision that's calm. I'll give you one more key factor in understanding, a clue that you're listening to your intuition, and that's the voice you're listening to, from all the voices around the conference table. So the main one is it's calm. Another one is it is clear. It is not ambiguous. Your intuition never says, I think so. It never says probably. It says yes or no. Should I do task A or task B? Task B. It doesn't say, I think you should do task B. I think, right? So when we say I think or probably, we're just playing safe. Probably allows me to say, I really want task A. I'm doing task A and task B. I'll probably task B is the main one, but if not, task A is really what I was thinking. It's like I once heard a story. There was a doctor. He would tell his patients, he would say, I can predict if you're going to have a boy or a girl. And what he would do is he would tell them boy and write down on their chart girl. If they had a boy, he would say, see, I told you that you were going to have a boy. If they would have a girl, he would say, oh, I don't remember what I told you, but look, I wrote down in your chart it was a girl. He's hedging his bet, right? He's holding on to both. When we say probably, I think so, when we aren't willing to own a decision that we make, it's because we're trying to play both sides of the card at the same time. Mm. We want to hold on to both. So instead of my owning the decision and saying task B is what I'm going to do, task A is what I'm going to do, we're like, it's probably task B, which means it might also be A. I'm going to hold on to both of those at the same time. So intuition doesn't play around like that. Intuition is clear. It will tell you yes, it will tell you no. It is not ambiguous at all. It is so clear. That's another way you can tell you're listening to your intuition. It's calm and it's clear.
Right. And there are so many people, especially today, that they're not necessarily calm, right? They have a lot going on. How do they break? I know that you said, a couple of different, ways to kind of break through the noise, but someone's starting out, right, which was the initial question. How do they pick up on the cues if they've got so much noise going on because they've been conditioned, especially, with all the noise in our world today? What are some of the different things that they can focus on to try to get back to that place of being able to pick up on the calm and the clear and the pieces that will really help them to make those intuitive decisions?
Okay, so like the first thing we said is you practice with the small decisions. That's number one. Number two is get yourself as calm as you can. You will never make a good decision when you're under a lot of stress. Why? Because, go back to the conference table example. There are a lot of voices yelling at you. You're not going to walk away with any good decision. So the first thing to do is don't try this when you're stressed. If you're stressed, it's not the time to practice your intuition. Use your intuition when you're calm. Use your intuition. Do whatever you need to do to get yourself calm. And when you're calmer, it's much easier to access your intuition. Once you start practicing that, you're going to notice there's going to be, because you've probably never noticed that voice right next to you, because if everyone around the conference table is yelling, you probably never really paid attention to the voice that's calm and clear right next to you. That when you ask the question, should I do this? It's calm, it's clear, it says yes or no. And that's it. That's all it says. And the other voice is yelling at you. How could you do this? Do you remember the last time you messed up? And what are you gonna tell so and so? And this guy's gonna say this about you. A lot of noise. So get yourself as calm as you can. And the first couple of times, you're gonna notice that you're gonna ask yourself, should I do this or that? And your intuition will respond. You're gonna say, wait a minute, I didn't even notice that there's a part of my brain that thinks like that. That thinks calmly. That thinks clearly. And doesn't, vacillate back and forth and second guess myself all the time. And the more you start to notice that, you're going to start looking for it, because it's going to feel very good. It's going to feel very different from every other decision that you've made. And you're going to start tapping into that, and you're going to start noticing it. And that is also going to help you develop it. Start the first couple of times you do it, it's going to be a very different decision process that you've done, and
Right.
you're gonna like it. You're gonna want to do it again.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. I mean, like, we talk a lot on the podcast about being of service and servant mindset and creating experiences. Intuition fits so beautifully into that, right? When you think about it, because a lot of people within the unfortunate stereotypical sales world, where a lot of people are pushy and they're being sleazy and just getting people to do things. If they were to tell someone, look, I want you to take a step back for a second, take a breath, and just, what is your gut telling you that you should do right now? It's a terrible question for them to ask, because their gut's going to tell them don't do it, because it's not going to help you and it's not for you, right? Because they're trying to get you to do something that you don't actually need. Unless they've given you all this information and they've managed to do it in such a way that you still think that it's a good decision to make and you'll regret it tomorrow when you wake up. Or in a week or two from now when you realize it doesn't work. Tomorrow you won't be waking up and realizing that it's not a good decision because your intuition told you to. But from the real way of doing sales, human to human, and with empathy and really trying to serve the other person, when they tap into that intuition on a call, to the contrary, that's the best way for them to make a decision, because it's coming from the deepest part of them.
And it's coming from the best part of them. That's the other,
Right.
Someone says, how do I know I can trust my intuition? This is you.
Right.
It's your mind making the absolute best decision for you. It's going to be coming from the best place possible. So you're absolutely correct that when you tap into that and you get deeper and you get really into what is best here, the answers become very clear.
Yeah, definitely. Right before we go to Q&A, are there any other important principles that you've discovered in your work with intuition and in business coaching in general that you'd like to impart on the audience or those listening in?
Well, I'm going to give you a 2-word rule that if you work on your intuition and you work on this rule in general, you're going to find all kinds of wonderful things are going to happen. And the rule is trust yourself. I would say there's so many times we don't trust ourselves and we make poor decisions because of that. We don't believe in ourselves. We don't believe in the business. We don't believe in the idea. We don't believe in what we're doing. We don't believe in moving forward. And we just wind up hurting ourselves. And the more you learn to trust yourself, and even if even you make the decision and it comes back to bite you, okay. Good. So what do you learn from that? That's life, right? What's the expression? Make new mistakes, right? Nothing wrong with making mistakes. Just make new ones. And learning from that and learning to trust yourself. And it's a very, very different experience of building a business, of living your life, of everything, once you're in that place of really learning to trust yourself.
Absolutely amazing. Moving into Q&A over here, and people can put in, what are you stuck on today? If you could ask one question on today's topic, what would that be? As we are a live audience, we'll give a minute for people to put that in. Although I do have a question here already. This person is thinking as of right now of bringing someone into their business. They're not specifying whether that's a coach, whether that's someone that they need to hire, and they're struggling with that decision making process. They need to make the decision soon, though. So what can they do right now? We've kind of covered this. We have covered this already. But what could they do right now to help them to move that process forward?
I think they need to tap into their intuition.
Yeah, they need to take that deep breath. They need to take a step back, calm themselves down, and just trust themselves. That was that biggest piece you just gave us.
Question. Yeah, and ask the question, should I bring this particular... I'm assuming they have someone in mind. I guess either way, whether their question is, should I bring anyone in? Should I bring someone in, yes or no? Or their question is, should I bring, Joe in, yes or no? Either way, ask yourself that question, and the voice that's calm, you're at that board meeting, everyone's around the conference table. Should I hire Joe, yes or no? The voice that's calm and clear and says either yes or no is the one you should listen to. That's your intuition. And trust it. Learn to trust it.
Yeah, and it's like you said earlier, like at the end of the day, when we're able to separate the decisions from the way we feel, and many times these types of decisions are surrounded by fear. They're surrounded by concern, worry, all those different aspects. You got to separate those two. You got to separate the decision from the feelings in order to really understand what the intuition is telling you based on the conversation and what David has been teaching us today. Another question that we have here is a little bit different in the sense that let me just make sure that I got this. As of right now, when this person understands the idea, okay, I got to step back, I got to, calm down. Right away, when they think of making a decision they have right now that they have to make, they hear that yes right away. And it's a resounding yes, but then that first piece, they're curious, is that them listening to their intuition? Is that their intuition speaking to them? That immediate automatic response? Because it's not necessarily... there is no feeling around that yes. It's just yes. That is them experiencing intuition? I would say yes, just from what you've told us today.
Absolutely. There's no feeling
there. It's
calm.
just a decision.
It's calm. It's yes. It's calm.
Beautiful.
I think that is their intuition.
Amazing. This seems to have been I know for myself this has been truly impactful for me. What I would say, just in ending off over here, there's so much information that we gained here today, from David teaching us the different ways to tap into our intuition. What is intuition? And really getting an understanding. How can we start off and the different understandings of the conditioning of life and how to take that step back. Pick one thing that you've taken out of today, just one that you're going to implement right away, as opposed to trying to do everything at once. I know I have a page of notes, and if I try to do them all at once, I'm not going to get anywhere, right? So let your intuition tell you which one to start with, and just start with that. And ending here, David, I know that you had mentioned when we had spoken that you had an offer you wanted to make to everyone here today and those listening. Tell us a little bit about that as I put the link in the chat.
Sure. So, I do business coaching and I do a variety of coaching. But if there's a specific area that if you would like to really learn to develop your intuition, I'm happy to help you. Reach out for that. I mean, this is something which I feel very strongly about, and I've seen people really turn businesses around, turn their lives around, turn so many areas of their life around through really learning to trust themselves and really learning to develop their intuition. And I'm happy to help anyone develop that. So please reach out if you want to really learn to develop this skill. I think it's the most powerful skill, because we make decisions all day long. And imagine if you could make the decision and know that you're making the absolute best decision 100% of the time when you're making.
Yeah, and that sounds like an absolutely unbelievable offer, being with the fact that ultimately all we want is to be making the decision that's going to be best for us. And the best way to do that is with our intuition. So I would say jump on that as quickly as possible. In this live, we speak about things that are timely, interesting, that you can add to your skill set toolbox. If you loved the live podcast today and you have any questions for me specifically, my contact information is in the chat as well. Whether it's my Calendly link or WhatsApp, you can feel free to set up a 30-minute free strategy session, taking your sales game to the next level, or just trying to understand a little bit more about something we spoke about today. And they do move fast, so grab them while you can. I really appreciate you coming on today, David. Thank you very, very much. I know it was truly impactful for me, and I have a much better understanding of how to utilize intuition. I believe just from the audience's questions, they're starting to tap into it as well. So thank you again very much on behalf of us all. And I look forward to speaking to you again in the future on this.
My pleasure. It was a real privilege to talk about this today. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And to everyone else, have a great rest of your day. Take care.